All right, good afternoon and welcome to the stage. Me, Njambi McGrath. Hello, guys. How are you doing? Good. Thank you so much for coming to see my show. Are we revolutionaries? Yeah. Yes, you will be today. You've got no choice. So on the 25th of June, 2024, something rocked the Kenyan political class. And it was in Italy organizing a marathon and banning Kenyans from participating. Yeah, that's a true story. A town in northern Italy organized a marathon and barred Africans from participating. You know the world champions in marathons? They banned the world champions from participating. I'm like, guys, what are you afraid of? Losing? Is this how we're doing this shit now in 2025, guys? No, seriously. Do you know what happens when there's no diversity? Eurovision. But seemingly out of nowhere, a revolution began, organized by the Kenyan Gen Z on TikTok. Are we guys on TikTok? Oh, no, good. You guys, you have way more things to do than I do. But TikTok is a video-based app, and anyone of any race, age, gender can post anything, and people get paid. People get paid. Like I posted a video of one of my materials, just me talking shit. It got 10 million views. Quite a healthy paycheck, okay? So much better than today. So TikTok is a video-based app, and people can post anything. You can watch people in Outer Mongolia peeling potatoes. You can watch people in the Congo hanging their laundry. You can watch African mothers chasing crocodiles with shoes. So TikTok bypasses traditional media directly to the masses. There are no fat cat media barons. There's no sensationalism, no agenda, just mediocrity. So TikTok is for revolutionaries and free thinkers and procrastinators. Oh yeah, any procrastinators in? Good, my people. Honestly, it's the only reason I'm on TikTok. My boss is asking me, hey, Njambi, what are you working on today? I'm like, Mongolia. I want to know if those guys use spices, okay? That is how I'm spending my time. And of course, we all know how revolutions begin. We all do. Yeah, it starts off when a group of disgruntled people go, guys, make some noise. Actually, no, that's posh white boys. That's posh white boys letting people know that they're out on the town and that all their daughters should be locked up. Because the only way girls are going to be safe today is if they're locked up. Now that's fucked up, right? Now this is fucked up, okay? And people just use these phrases. And we call this shit out. People are like, oh no, there's no freedom of speech these days. There's no freedom of speech these days. You ever notice people saying there's no freedom of speech have got nothing progressive to say? They're never gonna come out and advocate for refugee rights. They're never gonna come out and advocate for girls and women's rights. People saying things like, there's no freedom of speech these days. There's no freedom of speech. A man doesn't even know what to do these days. You can't even look at a woman without being accused of rape. I'm like, how exactly are you looking at these women? With your dick out? Is that the problem here? Is that the problem? But the Kenyan political class had never heard of TikTok. They thought TikTok is basically the noises teachers make when they're marking homework. Like, TikTok. And this is because the Kenyan political class and the older generation are still stuck on Facebook. Anybody here still on Facebook? Oh, good. You are. No, nobody here is on Facebook. Oh, you are on Facebook. See, people are still stuck on Facebook, liking videos of cats with Hitler mustaches. Yeah, this is how people are spending their time, man. And of course, are you all from the UK? You guys, everybody here from the UK? So you understand this one. So here, you call the older generation boomers, yeah? That's what you call them, boomers, because they're the people that gave birth. See, the thing is, like, the first time I had that word, boomers, I couldn't help myself but start thinking about seahorses. See, my time is so productively spent, okay? See, I started thinking about seahorses because anybody ever seen a seahorse give birth? Just me and you. Just me and you. What are you doing wasting your time? Okay? I'm spending my time watching seahorses give birth. Okay? Because it's the men seahorses give birth. And the men seahorses give birth in the exact same way you'd expect a man to give birth. Okay? All their offsprings in one go and they go, boom! That's how they give birth. because men love a thrust, don't they? Yeah, they love a thrust. And this is why you see all those rich Emiratis shipping their cars to Knightsbridge to show off the thrust of their cars. That's literally how they're spending their summers, showing off the thrust of their cars. And this is because cars are the only thing that are also measured in horsepower. Yeah, cars are the only things that are measured in animal. Nothing else. You don't go to a shop and somebody be asking you, hey, what length trousers are you after? And you're like, medium snake. I'm a medium snake. How about you, madam? What bra size are you? Rat? I am definitely a mouse. That's what I am. I'm a mouse. So one day, my dad decided to show the thrust of his car to his friends, to a group of men. And he wanted me to go with them. I didn't want to go because I didn't want to be surrounded by all that testosterone. I was 5 years old, so I held my own little mini protest. I was like, no, I shall not go. And I gave my dad a clear choice. Okay, my dad had a clear choice who to choose, and I walked home. I walked home. So the Kenyan political class were caught unawares by this revolution that began on the 25th of June, 2024. And these things don't just come out of nowhere. They don't. They're often simmering for a very long time, like a relationship breakup. Guys be going, hey, is it because I leave the toilet set up? No, it's a fart in the burp, in the socks, on the floor, the way you chew. I hate your mother and you fucked my friend. And here's the toilet sit up. That winds me up. Toilet sit. But this story began way back in 2011 when a Kenyan man by the name of William Ruto was indicted at the International Criminal Courts. Are we guys familiar with the International Criminal Courts? Of course we are. Of course we are. The International Criminal Courts, that's where they try, what we call them, Africans. Yeah, that's the role of the courts, trying Africans. Like, every time I think about the International Criminal Courts, I'm so amazed because this is like a family intervention. All your dodgy uncles high on coke trying your little brother for smoking pot. See, all these people are surrounding all these little African dictators and they're berating this African dictator for murdering 100 people. I'm like, didn't you wipe out Australia? Come on, guys, come on. And obviously we know the role of the courts is to try those people committing genocide. And not everybody is a signatory because some things are optional. It's like ordering a coffee these days. One doesn't know what to do. You go to order coffee. Hey, what coffee do you want? Cappuccino, latte, genocide? Who's counting? Who's counting? Milk is even harder, man. Getting your milk right is impossible. They're like, and what milk do you want? Do you want skim, semi-skimmed, or soya? And I'm like, listen, I'm just going to go and bomb people, okay? That's who we're blaming. We're blaming too many choices, okay? And of course, the International Criminal Court is so effective as a deterrent that William Ruto is now Kenya's president. And before leaving office, Joe Biden, senile, you remember senile Joe Biden? Senile Joe Biden confirmed Kenya's president as a major NATO ally. Was a small genocide amongst friends, I hear you ask, eh? And you know what? At the time when William Ruto was indicted, Kenyans were 100% behind him. We were 100% behind him. And the reason we were 100% behind him is because he was a deputy president and the Western countries wanted to get rid of the Kenya's president, who was elected democratically because he wasn't serving their needs. So they were like, you know how they do it? You know, they look at a map, we don't like the leader of that country. Shall we go for a regime change? So they were calling for a regime change. Now I'm calling for a regime change in the United States of America. Who's with me? Good. So I'm calling a regime change in the United Kingdom. Who's with me? There's always one. There's always one. I asked this question the other day. And there was a lady who was sat right at the front. And she said, no, Keir Starmer is doing a rather marvelous job. I was like, I need to keep my visa. He is. He's doing a marvelous job. So they were calling for a regime change in Kenya. And the Kenyans were like, hell no. So we were 100% behind the president and the vice president, William Ruto. And now William Ruto is the vice president. We hate him so much. We're trying to get him to the Hague. And the reason we cannot get him to the Hague is because they won't give us visas. But from the American civil rights to the slave riots to the recent UK riots, everybody wants and everybody deserves to have a voice. Is that fair to say? Everybody wants and everybody deserves to have a voice. But you know what? Like during the recent UK riots, people say that the white working classes were forgotten by politicians, and they say that the white working classes were falling behind. And they argued that that's because the white working classes were ignored by politicians. And so when the rioting began, I thought they would go straight to City Hall and demand a meeting with the mayor. But when the rioting began, they went straight to Primark. They were like, we demand to be seen in 5-pound jeggings. I was like, you go, girl. Who am I to tell you how to protest? People protest in the best way they know how. By far, the latest protest I have seen is outside Ealing Town Hall in West London, where I'm based. So there's a group of protesters protesting something against the council, but they don't feel enough anger. So what they have done is they've gone to another protest where people are so angry, they have recorded those angry protesters, and now they're playing a recording of those angry protesters in their protest because they cannot summon enough anger whilst they're there scrolling on social media. I'm like, my God, this is how we're doing protests these days, is it? So if you're going to be plagiarizing another protest, whatever you're accusing the council of, you so deserve it, mate. But people protest in different ways. Who am I to say how to protest? People protest in different ways. By far, the most extreme form of protest is self-immolation. Are you guys familiar with self-immolation? Self-immolation is basically when people douse themselves with fuel and set themselves alight. So last year, a very young man, a 25-year-old US Air Forceman, went all the way to Washington, D.C., and outside the Israeli embassy, he doused himself with fuel, set himself alight while streaming live on Twitch. Yeah, Twitch is another app. Like, we were watching that. It was horrific. We were like, oh my God, this is the most horrific thing you'll ever see. It is so awful. People online were like, oh my God, this is a sign of despair. Other people were like, no, it's not despair, it's defiance. And other people were like, no, he's just heroic. But in the era of social media, some people couldn't help themselves but go, I wonder how many new followers he's going to get after this. You guys never go to the comment section? No, that's how I'm spending my time, in the comment section. Okay, I'm doing something worthwhile with my life in the comment section, man. But people protest in different ways. There's an Indian man who protested in 1973 by putting his hand in the air and calling for world peace. And 50 years later, do we have world peace? Hell no. So his hand is still in the air. And of course, the bones of his hands have fused this way, which basically means that his hand will never come down, which I think is very noble. It's a very noble thing to do. But you could never take him to a press conference. Do you guys remember that press conference when the Iraqi journalist threw shoes at George W? You remember? Oh yeah, everybody remembers what they were doing during that press conference. Yeah? So if you don't know what that is, basically George W. Bush, when he was president, he called a press conference and he was talking the usual American shit. He was going on and about war on terror, about ISIS, Al-Qaeda, axis of evil. And suddenly, an Iraqi journalist started throwing shoes at him. The missile of shoes was coming, and he was ducking, and he was diving, he was ducking, he was bracing himself. And we're like, George, you're the Matrix, man. Another time, people said things like, throwing shoes in Iraq is an insult. I was like, in which culture is being hit with a shoe a form of flattery? If that is the case, I'll be flattering my mother-in-law every time she comes for Christmas. And you know what? And then it got me thinking, because throwing shoes is a weapon of choice for African mothers. African mothers, they don't even tell you off. They just go down. And you're like, oh. Even crocodiles, African, that's their weapon of choice, okay? That's the weapon of choice. So it got me thinking, where did this come from? Throwing shoes, where did it come from? And then I started doing my research. That's how I'm also spending my time, okay? And then I found out, so you people are from the UK. Correct me if I'm wrong. if somebody is getting married, the bride wears something old, something blue, something borrowed, or something goes like that, yeah? So I found out that the something old is that wedding couples, they used to be pelted with old shoes. I wonder why they dropped this custom. All these brides going home thinking, oh my God, I just wanted to lose my virginity and not for teeth, you dickheads. But this revolution that began on the 25th of June 2024 came exactly 60 years after the Mau Mau uprising. Anyone here familiar with the Mau Mau uprising? Oh, just a couple of people. Okay. So if you don't know what the Mau Mau uprising, I shall tell you. The Mau Mau uprising is basically when the Kenyans went and told the British government, we want our independence. And the British government was like, oh, do you now? But what a difference 60 years make. Because 60 years ago, the Kenyan freedom fighters, they had so little to fight with. You know, they had so little. They had to use rudimentary methods. So one of the things that they did was they threatened the British government that they would not cut their hair because they know white people are scared of black hair. Because like people think the afro is what happens when a black person is provoked. You know, people think that you could be getting on with your shit, somebody says some crazy shit and porcupine. So they went to the British government and they were like, give us our independence or we'll show you how hairy we get. Quite a threat. But speaking of hair, in the 1970s, there was a black journalist in America called Melba Tolliver. Now, Melba Tolliver was assigned to cover the wedding of President Richard Nixon's daughter. Quite a gig for anybody. But for a black woman in the 1970s, coming off the back of the civil rights movement, incredible. Now, Melba was so excited, she could not believe it. And they told her, mate, the gig is yours. It's yours, mate. But on one condition. They told her that she cannot show her natural hair. She had to either wear a headscarf or a wig. They were like, we don't care if you look Taliban, just don't look provoked, okay? So they gave her a choice, money and fame or integrity. And of course, Melba is a proud black woman. She went with integrity. Had that been me, I'd have turned up looking like Boris Johnson. But you know, the notion of giving people their independence is such a strange thing to me. It's so strange. It's not yours to give. You cannot give anybody their independence. You can stop taking their rights. But you cannot. I can't give you your independence. I can't give you your independence. I can stop taking away your human rights, but it's not yours to give. And so when Kenya got its independence from the British, because that's how people get their independence, they had to fight for it. When Kenyans got their independence from the British government insisted on having a handover ceremony. Do you know how ridiculous that is? This is like somebody snatching your laptop. You chase them, you chase them, you chase them. You catch them. You fight, you fight, you fight. You wrestle the laptop away from them. You're beginning to walk away and they're like, mate, can you wait? Can we have a handover ceremony? Maybe you and me could be friends. What do you say? We could play games together. I could come see you. For real? Can I come see you? No, we don't like immigrants. So weird. So weird. But the French, as colonizers, when they gave the countries of West Africa their independence, it was so mean-spirited. It is the most mean-spirited independence anybody ever got, because the French government insisted that the countries of West Africa must use a currency that is specifically printed by the French and controlled by the French. Not only that, the countries of West Africa had to pay France a tax for being colonized. Do you know how awful that is? This is like being kidnapped and held in a basement for 70 years. And when you're set free, you still have to go back and give your kidnapper a blowjob for old time's sake. So sour, man. So sour. And now there is Burkina Faso, a country in the western part of Africa, has a new president, and his name is Ibrahim Traoré. Ibrahim Traoré hates the French. He hates the French so much that the first thing he did when he became president was to kick out the French ambassador. And the French ambassador was like, no, we are not leaving. We're here to help. That's a French accent, by the way. So the French ambassador was like, no, we shall not leave. We're here to help you fight terrorism. And he was like, the last time I checked, the definition of terrorism is somebody invading your country, raping your women, stealing your land, and turning you into a slave. I hate to break this to you, but you are the terrorist. He said, I want you to go. And the French ambassador was like, no, I shall not leave. So he cut off the French ambassador's electricity, still did not leave. He cut off the French ambassador's gas, still did not leave. He cut off the French ambassador's water, still did not leave. So he shut down the pastry bakery, left the next day. That's how you get rid of the French. But you know what, guys? And I'm happy to say this, okay? I was born lucky. I was born lucky, I was born lucky, I was born lucky, I was born lucky. And I know I'm a black African woman saying this in front of a bunch of white people, but I was born lucky. Because had I been born in the 1800s, I definitely would have been owned by a white man. And now it's 2025, I own a white man. He's in the basement. Had I been born in the 1900s at the height of British colonialism, I would have been in forced labor like my grandmother, who she spent all her life in forced labor. Had I been born in the 1950s, I definitely would have been in a concentration camp like my parents. My parents spent 8 years of their lives in a concentration camp for daring to ask the British government for independence. But I lived in the 80s and 90s, a beautiful time in Kenya. It was so beautiful because Kenyans were still enjoying the benefits of independence. Do you know how it feels when you're free? Of course you do. It was a time when people were just reveling in freedom. You could literally get up and go. Do you know how amazing it is to just get up and go? My parents couldn't, because my parents had to carry a passbook, and this passbook had to be signed by their masters to say that they had permission to move from point A to point B, and it had to be labor-related. I grew up at a time when you woke up, you stood outside, and you yelled to the hills, I want dick! And you got dick. You got dick. You got dick. You got dick. Because all that oppression and repression made us Kenyans very horny. Okay? Kenyans became so horny, seriously, like all we did was fuck. Okay? Now you might think, how come we've never heard about this one? Oh. Before we were famous as marathon runners, we were very famous at fucking, okay? And how can you tell this? Because when Kenya got its independence, its population was just a mere 20 million. And now we are 54 million. We are like seahorses, like, bam! That's how we do it in Kenya. That's how we do it. So, and you know you have overdone it with the sex, okay? When your country becomes the agenda at WHO. And you know they're always condescending to Africans. They're always so condescending to Africans. They're always like, Kenyans, what have you been up to? I'll be like, come again? Okay. So I asked my mom to define her childhood to me. And she defined it in just one word, hunger. That's all my mom remembers of her childhood, hunger. And why was she hungry? Because they asked the British government for independence. And what did the British do? They took everybody from my tribe and they threw them into concentration camp and they systematically starved them. There was no food that was available for them. And then they brought in the Red Cross to give them little parcels of food so that they can eventually die of natural causes. And then they went all over the UK asking the British people to donate just a little bit of food to help starving Africans. They were like, why are they starving? Nobody knows why they're starving. And this is my mother's childhood. That is what my mother remembers. That was my mother's childhood. But I grew up at a different time. I grew up at a time when my parents could eat. Do you know how amazing it feels to just go and eat? That's how my parents were. My parents were grateful they were free and they could eat. I never understood that shit because I was free and I was eating whenever I wanted. And so my parents became so grateful for their freedom and food. The things that everybody takes for granted. So they became so religious, so religious. I was surrounded by all these religious people. They were praising God all the time. They were singing and praising God all the time. They became utterly religious. And they used to say things like, women who wear short skirts, high heels, red lipstick, and drink alcohol would all go to hell. And that was the first time I became interested in hell. I was like, damn, people going to hell look so fine. That is literally where I want to be. Because I'm looking at the people going to heaven. And I'm like, I think maybe we got our wires crossed. Okay? Because I'm looking at all those Catholic priests. And I'm like, are these the good guys? These are the people going to heaven? These are the good guys? And those people are just having a good time. Those are the bad guys. Because we're told that Satan is the bad guy. Okay, how about if it's just propaganda? How about, I don't know, how about if he was just woke? Satan could just be woke and the other guy was right-wing. I don't know. He probably is probably the Corbyn. I have no idea. But you know what, guys? The concept of friendships and enemies is so strange because 70 years ago, Kenyans and the British were arch rivals. And now I fuck one of you. I know my husband would disagree, but I fuck one of you. But Kenya is so different now. Kenya is so different now. Half of Kenya's population is under 18. That's half of Kenya's population is under 18, they're children, okay? The mean age of the 54 million people in Kenya is 19. These kids are young, educated, unemployed, unfulfilled, and social media savvy. Oh, lethal combination. Lethal combination, because if this was a cocktail, it'd be called B-52, because a bomb was about to hit the Kenyan political class. And the thing is that Kenyans know good governance. They know what they deserve, but they are not getting it. So instead of books, guess what Kenyans are reading? Parliament bills. These are difficult to decipher, and so what they do is they create bills, the videos of the bills. They analyze the bill and what it's going to mean to you as an individual, okay? Not only that, they translate these bills in all the different languages of Kenya so that nobody gets left behind, okay? Not only this, they combine this with old-fashioned militancy of going door to door, educating people, holding civic education. This would never happen here, would it? It would happen here because like the old people have the money and the power, okay? Yeah. So on the 25th of June, 2024, the revolution began. And the protesters, and when I say protesters, these are children, okay? These are children between 12 and 18. So the protesters were angry. They were angered by a new proposed finance bill. And one particular thing really upset them. One particular thing caught their eye, and that was a huge levy on sanitary towels. They were like, sanitary towels, as in period sanitary towels. We were like, who is this Dracula? Like, seriously, because girls are poor around the world. Even in Western countries, girls are poor. Period poverty is a real thing, okay? So why would you increase the price of sanitary towels? If you increase the price of sanitary towels, not beer or cigarettes, but sanitary towels, this is what it means. It means the girls, during their periods, will not afford the pads, so they would have to avoid going to school. So the girls are going to have to skip school, and when they skip school, that's going to have a huge impact on their education. We were like, hang on. Who does not want Kenyan girls to be educated? And we were like, oh, shit, it's the Taliban. Yeah. But you know what? You don't ever get to mess around with African children's education. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because when a 15-year-old autistic girl protested by going to protest climate change, everybody knew that Greta Thunberg was white. Okay. Everybody knew Greta Thunberg was white because you tried this as an African kid. You said to your mom, I'm not going to school, I'm going to just one motion, you'll be at school by noon. Oh, you'll be at school by noon. And yet, a 14-year-old girl protested by going to school. And everybody knew Malala Yousafzai had to be brown because brown parents be like, what do you mean you're not going to school because you're scared of the Taliban? Off you go. And of course, they shot her in the head. They shot her in the head, and she still managed to get 8 straight A's. Because brown parents be like, being shot in the head is not a reason for not getting into Oxford. So Kenyans were on a quest. They wanted to know who did not want Kenyan girls to be educated. So they went down the rabbit holes. They were looking down the rabbit holes, and they discovered that it wasn't the Taliban. It was someone a lot more dangerous. An old white woman. We were like, an old white woman? But Thatcher is dead. We're like, who else? We're like, oh my God, we have never offended an old white woman or anyone white for that matter. Oh my God, who can it be? They discovered it was an old white American woman. We were like, an old white American woman? Why would an old white American woman go all the way to Kenya to destroy poor girls? Let me tell you about Meg Whitman. Anyone ever heard of Meg Whitman? Oh, you will now. Meg Whitman is a 69-year-old white American woman. She's got white hair. She's basically quite unassuming. She's got elasticated trousers, Jesus sandals, you know. Yeah. But they say that you must never, ever, ever judge a book by its cover because Meg Whitman is the ex-CEO of eBay. Yeah, now you know, the largest online auction house. Kenyans were like, white American, auction, black Africans, run. Meg Whitman propelled eBay from an $8 million company to a $1 billion company. Had she left it at that, she would have been a role model for girls. Oh, yeah. But they don't leave it at that, do they? Because it seems like when you become a billionaire, you get a letter, don't you? Congratulations on your billions. You can now officially become evil. Choose from any one of these evil categories. Fuck a group of people. Fuck the environment. Become a deviant. Become a recluse. Or would you like all of the above? I don't know what else she chose, but she definitely chose to fuck a group of people. Because this is billionaires, isn't it? This is what billionaires do. Why can't you, as a billionaire, make your money and go with your family and enjoy it and leave me out of your grand plan? Why can't you do that? Like, because billionaires, have you ever noticed, like, billionaires, when they make their money and they're being interviewed, they're like, oh my God, you're amazing, you're a billionaire. What are you gonna do with your money? Oh yeah, I have this grand plan. I'm gonna go all the way to Africa. Piss off! Like, enjoy your money, and I will never bother you, but don't have me in your grand plan, okay? And it seems like when you become a billionaire, it switches something in your brain. It turns you into a psychopath, okay? We are all probably horrible psychopaths. But we don't know this. We have no idea because that thing hasn't happened. Because I'm not calling you poor, but you don't look like billionaires. I'm assuming you're nice, okay? You don't look like, we don't know. But when you get to be a billionaire, like for example, Elon Musk, before Elon Musk became a billionaire, we all thought he was a genius. Became a billionaire, boom, nasty. Mark Zuckerberg, before he became a billionaire, we all thought he was a college whiz kid. Became a billionaire, boom, alien. So Meg Whitman became a billionaire. And you see the difference between like a black person and a white person? So like a black person becomes a billionaire. They're like, I'm going to buy myself a Rolls Royce. A white person becomes a billionaire. I'm going to conquer shit in Africa. I'm like, piss off. But they say timing is everything. Because Meg Whitman arrived in Kenya at the very precise moment we had just elected a donkey. Actually, not a real donkey, because I love donkeys. Like, had we elected a donkey, we would have had so much progress, okay? Because Kenyans somehow elected William Ruto, okay? And let me tell you about William Ruto. He's an actual fascist. Yes, his army, he's got an army suppressing the people of Haiti. You know, those people that were ex-slaves a long time ago, they've been fighting from 1800s for their independence. The Kenyan government is out to suppress the black people of Haiti. Okay, this is Kenya's president. Okay, he's an actual fascist, but he lacked connections until Meg Whitman came along. So Meg Whitman came along. And you know, because seriously, Meg is a conservative Republican. Do you need me to say anything else? No. So Meg Whitman is a conservative Republican, and she was basically, she donated $2 million to senile Joe Biden. And in return, Joe Biden made her the U.S. ambassador to Kenya. This is how these things work. This is how these things work, you see. See, Meg Whitman became the U.S. ambassador after, what do you call it? Bribery. That's right, after bribing Joe Biden, and she became the U.S. ambassador to Kenya. And she arrived at the time when we had a donkey in government. Now, William Ruto lacked anything, and all Meg had to do was to stroke his ego. And he was like, yeah, baby, come write my bills. And you know, Meg is like a rat. You invite one, they all turn up. So Meg arrived in Kenya with the IMF, the World Bank, Unilever, Monsanto, and we were like, how about Diddy and Epstein? Like, we want to be fucked by everybody. Please, get them here. That's what we're looking for. So Meg Whitman got to sit in the Kenyan parliament drafting some crazy bills. Some bills that are so crazy. So one of the bills was a huge hike in sanitary towels. A huge hike in sanitary towels. We're like, Meg, are you trying to stop Kenyan girls from going to school? Is this what you're trying to do? And the other one was a huge VAT on bread. We were like, bread? Who are you trying to punish with the bread? We couldn't understand it. And we're like, Meg, you're such an old woman. See, when Bill Gates became a billionaire, what did he go for? Population control. When Elon Musk became a billionaire, what did he go for? Social media control. Meg Whitman, when she became a billionaire, what did she go for? Periods and bloating. I'm like, man, just don't be such an old woman. And you know what? Meg, being a white American woman, could not go to a country full of natives and engage in old-fashioned land grabbing. Oh, she couldn't, because her land grab bill was that all Kenyan farmers were to lose the right to their land because they were going to convert them from owners to renters. You know where this is going to go. They're going to raise the prices, they're going to fall behind, and boom, land gone. Oldest trick in the book. That's how Kenyans were colonized the first time. Okay. Not only that, she made it illegal for Kenyan farmers to plant native seeds. That's right, native seeds. You know, the maize and beans that people in Africa grow and eat? She made it illegal for them to grow those seeds. You know, so if you had a good harvest last year and you had so much stock and you're thinking this year you're going to plant it and keep your family fed that way, and then you might think, I had too many beans, I'm going to go to my neighbor and I'm going to exchange it with potatoes that I can have a balanced diet. No, she made that illegal. Anybody that was using native seeds faced 7 years in jail, okay? 7 years in jail because Kenyan farmers were being forced to buy all their seeds from Monsanto. Genetically modified food from Monsanto. Now, here's what we know about genetically modified food. You plant it, it grows. It doesn't regenerate, okay? They already tried this in India, okay? They got Indian farmers to do the exact same things. So they were buying all their food from Monsanto, and then by the next harvest, they had nothing. So they had to go back to Monsanto because they're not making any money. Please, we need some more seeds, but we've got nothing left. Okay, we'll give you a loan. So many of them ended up being so indebted, they committed suicide. So they decided it was so successful in India, let's implement it in Kenya. We were livid. Kenyans were so angry. See, Meg Whitman is the opposite of Greta Thunberg. Because Greta Thunberg, she's just a wholesome young activist, and Meg is just an old capitalist bitch. We were so angry because this is going to destroy the complete ecosystem of Kenya. Because all you need is 2 harvests, and this is completely going to destroy everything. The ants, the bees, the insects, the birds, the animals, the people, everything is going to be destroyed by this. And we were screaming to Meg Whitman, do you know climate change is real, you bitch? It causes global warming and wildfire. She was like, welcome to menopause. Oh, my God. So, on the 25th of June, 2025, the protests began. This revolution began with a group of protesters coming and converging in the central business district of Nairobi. Yes, we have a central business district. I know that doesn't ever feature in those commercials for Oxfam, because those commercials for Oxfam is always flies and wells. So these teenage protesters, they converged in the central business district, and they were equipped with water. It was clean. They were equipped with water and placards. Because placards is how you communicate with governments. Small slogans, that's how you communicate with governments, yeah? Like Robert Mugabe, when his reign was over, people of Zimbabwe decided to take to the streets. So they got their placards and they ran down the streets. They were chanting and singing. And this journalist was chasing them and went, hey, guys, can you stop? Can I see what's on your placard? Guy turns around. I thought his placard would say something like, Mugabe was a terrible man. Guy turns around and the placard said, Arsene Wenger must go. So what was Mugabe suppressing? Seriously. So on this day, the protests began. Okay, the protesters converged in the central business district, and the mood was jovial. And don't forget, they're 12 years old until 18, 19-year-old, okay? They're all taking to the streets. They're dancing in the streets. They're high-fiving each other. They're chanting their usual chants. Down with this government. Down with the finance bill. Subscribe to my channel. They were live on TikTok. The mood was so good. They were singing the national anthem. I was watching it live on TikTok. Okay, so a group of guys got excited. They banged the door to Parliament. They went in. One guy went straight and stole the maize. If you don't know what the maize is, it's a thing that ratifies the bill. That is the kind of thing Kenyans would steal. Anybody else, they'll be like, what the fuck is this? But this guy, he went and stole the maize, and he was videoed carrying the souvenir home. And of course, we know what that means. No maize, no bills could be ratified. This is how Kenyans are thinking, okay? So the whole country was awake. We were watching the whole thing on TikTok, live on TikTok. Now, there was revolution was in the air. People had finally heard enough. They were all out in their masses. But I was not the only person who was watching it on TikTok. The government was. Meg Whitman was. And Meg was like, hell no. Nobody puts granny in the corner. So they were ready for the next protest. So for the next protest, they had rooftop snipers. So the first group of protesters, they came. They were singing, they were dancing, high-fiving each other, chanting their usual chants. And CNN was there to record everybody. And I was there live on TikTok watching. So everybody was there. The mood was jovial. They were singing the national anthem. And then suddenly, the first row of protesters were all shot dead. The first guy to be shot in his white overalls with his brains all over the floor. The guys just covered him with a flag. Fists in the air, they began singing the national anthem. They weren't even afraid. And this image became the emblem of the current revolution that's taking place in Kenya. These killings live on CNN was a scare tactic. But Kenyans were like, hang on. There's 54 million of us with an appetite for fucking, okay? We will regenerate, they cannot take our future, okay? That's how we made that 54 million. We're like, bam! They were like, you know what? These protests are going to become weekly. They become weekly. But the government became bolder. By the third protest, the government had rooftop snipers. They had ground assassins, people with hooded faces, with huge machine guns. They had police. They had tear gases. They had Boris's old water cannons. The protesters were undeterred. They marched forward. They were dancing. The police was throwing tear gas on them. And then they punctured Boris's old water cannon. They used the water to wash off the tear gas from their faces. One guy was just stood there, and a police officer threw a gas canister. It landed between his feet. He picked it up. He began smoking live on TikTok. He got so many followers that day. The death rate was rising. Children were being gunned down by all these people. The parents became so horrified by the death rate. They were like, my God, I can't let my children go to the protest to die. If my children are going to die, I'm going to die alongside them. So the parents started coming to the protest. The government became bolder. By the next protest, they had rooftop snipers. They had ground assassins. They had Boris's old water cannons. They had police with tear gas, except this time they weren't just shooting people, they sprayed them with Agent Orange. If you don't know what Agent Orange is, it's a horrific chemical warfare that was used on the people of Vietnam by the US military. It's a chemical warfare which basically when it comes on your skin, you can never wash it off. You will never ever be able to get it off. It sinks into your body and you start bleeding internally. Not only that, you pass it on to your generation and generation and generation. People of Vietnam to this day are still suffering the effects of Agent Orange. And now the Kenyan president, with the help of the American embassy, are using Agent Orange on Kenyan teenagers because they just want girls to go to school. It's incredible. It's incredible. At the end of that protest, the government turned off the internet. And you know, governments are not going to turn off the internet for anything nice. They're not going to come out in the morning and go, ta-da! Everybody got a pay rise. They're never going to do that. But before the internet shut down, people were putting videos on TikTok saying, guys, there's a massacre taking place. There's a place that is full of hooded men with machine guns, and they're shooting people randomly. So many people have been shot dead. And then the internet went dead. And so we were waiting all night. God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then woke up in the morning. People ran to the site to look for the bodies. Not a single body could be found. Within 2 hours, a Western major news channel came out and said there definitely was not a massacre. Kenyans were like, we know exactly what happened last night. But with no bodies, no crime had been committed. So, in a different part of town, a homeless guy was just rummaging. He was rummaging and rummaging in a swamp and dump site. He was rummaging, and then he sees a green bag, an army green bag. And so he pulls it out and pulls it out and pulls it out and pulls it out. And it looks like a body. And then he sees another one, so he pulls it out, and another, he pulls it out, and another. So he went live on TikTok. He was like, guys, look at all these bodies right here. And people from the surrounding area started coming. They started coming to the site. They all went live on TikTok. They were like, guys, look at all these bodies. So they were pulling out all these bodies, piles and piles and piles of bodies, all wrapped with the same army green bag. They pulled out the bodies and they opened the bags. They found babies shot in the face. They found girls shot, boys shot, men shot, women shot. And they were all bound together with string, put in these plastic bags, and it was in the swamp. Within an hour, the Kenyan police that have never, ever, ever resolved a single crime came out. They came out within an hour and said that they had arrested a serial killer. We were like, what? They said, yeah, we have arrested a serial killer. And we were like, Meg Whitman, William Ruto, see you soon. And, you know, this is not how these things work, okay? Those people are never going to face justice because who they arrested was a poor guy. He was just in the streets. And then they arrested him and put him in front of the media. And they said, yeah, this guy is a serial killer. We have evidence. So they put 5 old Samsung phones. We're like, what? What are you trying to say? That this guy was using these phones to ring these people? Hey, I'm coming to shoot you in the face, so get yourself ready. Like, what was it, the IRA? And then they said, oh, we've got more evidence. They brought out 5 ladies' underwear. I'm like, what? I'm like, guys, if you're going to go with this serial killer theme, watch CSI. And then maybe you can convince us a little bit more. But you know what? Kenyans came to a conclusion that protests are far too dangerous. Because so many of them, so many children are now riddled with Agent Orange. So many children are disabled, riddled with bullets so they can't walk. They are disabled. Mothers are weeping. Mothers are crying. Their children who've been gunned down. We got our independence, and now this is what is happening in Kenya. So they said, guys, we can't go to the streets. We need to change tact. So they went online. They started creating videos of William Ruto and all the stuff that he has done, all the lies he has done. They started putting out there. 14-year-old girls wrote a play. The only reason I know about this play that was written by 14-year-old girls, because I'm kind of out of the loop of what 14-year-old girls get up to. Yeah, the only reason I know about these girls and the play that they wrote called Echoes of War was because they were going to perform this play to other 14-year-old girls in the annual drama festival. Okay? The only reason we know about it is because they turned up to perform their play to be met by 50 police officers who tear gassed them in their bus. They were turned around and they were sent home. Okay? People would be called, because William Ruto is a narcissist, so he was calling people to go to his rallies. People would turn up to his rallies, and when he began speaking, they would turn away from him. One time, he was stood there, he was promising people shit, and then suddenly a shoe whacked him in the head. Like, nice bit of flattery right there. There's got to be an African mother somewhere there. So they say that timing is everything. Because on the 20th of January 2025, Trump became president. And when Trump became president, he took away U.S. aid. And he said that U.S. aid to Africa was being used to fund nefarious purposes. It was being used to fund terrorism in Africa. He said it was being used to fund terrorists like Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, and old white women. Meg Whitman was recalled back to America. And I don't know what is going to happen to Meg, because the damage she has done to the people of Kenya, we can never recover from it. Okay? We just pray that Meg Whitman ends up in heaven. As for me, I'll be dancing in hell. Anyone coming? Guys, I am so grateful that you came to see my show. I'm very happy. And my name is Njambi McGrath, and have a great afternoon. Before you go, I'm also an author. So I wrote this book. It's called Through the Leopard's Gaze. And this is the story of me and my family and how I discovered that my parents actually spend their time in concentration camps. Because if you're telling your child you were hungry, it doesn't really register. So it's the story of my family. It's light and shade. And so, yeah, it's called Through the Leopard's Gaze. If you want to buy this book, it's £10. I also wrote my first... That is my debut fiction. And this book is about a Kenyan girl who wants to be a somebody, because Kenyan girls want to be a somebody. And she's going through life in Nairobi trying to become a somebody. This book has been longlisted for a major award. And if you want to buy this one, it's a bit more expensive. It's £18. Even if you don't buy my books, I am just so grateful that you came. Have a great afternoon. Thank you. Thank you.